better together. We grow in this space of being better together, knowing that everything is always working for our highest good. And so our talk this morning is focusing on this idea of we, and using the greater than sign, we greater than me. We're going further together. So we're all in this together. While getting dressed this morning, the song "People Make the World Go Round" dropped into my spirit. And this was a song by the Stylistics that I believe was composed around 1971, somewhere in the early 70s. And I offer that as a backdrop for our time together. People make the world go round. There's an African proverb that reminds us that alone we go faster, together we go farther. Alone we go faster, together we go farther. And then Ubuntu is a part of Zulu life philosophy, meaning I am because we are. I am because we are. In community, we embody this consciousness that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and each individual is uplifted because of the support of the group. And I thought of this idea of being together in group and being in community on a recent road trip up to San Francisco. And it reminded me that driving is a spiritual experience. It is both an individual expression and it is also a community engagement. And I was driving up and you know, I was just thinking about, okay, what is it that's attracting all of these people to want to ride on my rear? You know, it felt like they were trying to get into the trunk of my car and ride along with me. Now, I think that I have an attractive car. I really like my car. It's a nice looking car. And so I think other drivers are attracted to it also. So I had all of these tailgaters. and I could not really slow down, but when I had my cruise control set. And so what I would do to get some of them to back off is that I would just very gently hit the dial so that it would drop one mile at a time. And so it wouldn't be a sudden slowdown, and I wouldn't hit the brakes, but it was enough to just infuriate them a little bit more. That was my intention, I must admit. It's like, there are 3 other lanes around me, so you can go around. The purpose of my trip to San Francisco, though, was to visit the Sistine Chapel exhibit. This is an exhibit that is touring various parts of the world, and some friends had told me about it. And so I said, well, you know, that might be a nice thing to go and see, because when my wife and I were in Rome, we visited the Sistine Chapel, and the back wall of the chapel, where is the scene of the Last Judgment and the fall of man, was being restored. So that part we did not get to see. And so I thought, oh, this would be a good idea to go back and to go and see, you know, what that back wall looks like in its final finished form. And so I went, and you know, I really don't know what my expectation was. When I walked into the exhibit, it was like, oh. And then I had to realize, okay, you've been to the actual Sistine Chapel in Rome. This is not going to be the same identical experience because it is a traveling exhibit. And so after about 10 minutes, you know, it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to go. And but when I was looking at the fresco and the painting of the Last Judgment and the fall of man, I realized, I really had an epiphany in that moment. And I realized how much my own spiritual awareness of the truth for me about God has shifted since I was in Rome and since I was practicing the theology and the doctrines of Catholicism. And in looking at that painting of the Last Judgment and the fall of man, where God is casting, God is sitting up here and is pointing the finger and casting people out. There's also a depiction of Jesus that is pointing his finger and casting people out of heaven down into hell in this eternal damnation. What really resonated with me is that that's not what I believe about God. That is not what I believe about God any longer. My shift has been to the awareness of what the basic teaching is, and that is God is love. And this God that loves and adores me, that cared enough about me to create me in its likeness, is that which I really resonate with now. And it was not a condemnation of the theology or the doctrines of the Roman Catholic teachings or any of the other traditional teachings. It was just an awareness of where I have grown to, where I have grown from. And also I thought about, before I tell the joke, there's after the exhibit, after one walks through the exhibit, there's a short 20-minute video of Michelangelo. For me, that was worth the entire trip. It was worth the price of the admission, the drive up, and everything. In the video, it showed Michelangelo as the man, Michelangelo as the creative expression, and how he was commissioned by the Pope, and the various hoops that he had to jump through, and the negotiating and the exchanges that went along with completing the project and other things that he had done. And so it was a nice reminder that this is where, for me, the focus of my attention on. It is on the creative expression and how the Spirit, how this living presence within expresses itself through our creativity. And each one of us has a talent or talents that allow us to create and to express this love, this intuitive genius, and as the song said, pour yourself into me, wonderful Spirit. And so as the Spirit pours itself into us, we express it outward in various forms. But that reminded me of a story that I heard a long time ago. Two monks were translating some of the ancient text, and they came to a point where there was something that just wasn't clear in the translation. And so one of the monks says, well, let me go down into the catacombs and I will find the original scrolls and we'll look at that and we'll see, we can figure out the meaning. So he's down and he's looking through the scrolls and he comes to a point where he stops. And his response was, they lied. They've lied. They've lied. And this is what he kept saying, they've lied. And so he's saying this as he's coming back up to his fellow monk, and he's just really infuriated. And so the monk says, hey, brother, what's up? What's going on? And he says, they've lied to us. All of these years, they've lied to us. The word is celebrate, not celibate. And so this leads me into our CSL Global Vision, and it's an we can use that little bit of humor as an opportunity to also think about the example that I'm going to give to you. Our CSL Global Vision states that we see a world in which everyone lives in alignment with their highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. Now, this sounds nice and spiritually compelling, and it's a nice goal to attempt to achieve for it. And yet, we witness the opposite in the world of effect. And something that recently caught my attention. This took place in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and it has made national news. An adjunct school board member in Virginia Beach, Virginia, wants to block Toni Morrison and other African American authors whose writings and themes deal in race. She's requesting that their books be banned from the libraries, from the circulations, and also blocked electronically. Basically, she wants them obliterated. In addition, the request asks for the district to review every book in the system's libraries. Now, there's no basis other than race that is being presented in the media. So I don't have an awareness of what else this particular adjunct board member may be after. But then there was a comment that was recorded by this individual that really took me into a deep place in my spiritual tool chest. I mean, I really had to dig deep to find something that would bring me back into a spiritual space. And what the person had written in an email is that the book by Toni Morrison, her classic Bluest Eye, the person had never read it and had never read any of the other books that they're requesting to be banned. But this is what the writer said about the Toni Morrison book. Just reading a few of the pages gives me utter disgust. And so I had to go deep, I mean really deep into my spiritual tool chest to say, okay, what am I spiritually called to respond? How am I spiritually called to respond to this? And what came forth was active compassion. Active compassion. Practicing and releasing hurts and judgments. Because I definitely went to a place of hurt and deep judgment with this particular experience. Practicing compassion allows us to see the universal spirit in everyone. This is the basics of our teaching, that we see this universal spirit in everyone. Learning about and fully embracing people from many walks of life help us to become a better spiritual and global community. Engaging our spiritual practices of listening, openness, forgiveness, surrender, faith, and trust all lead themselves to our going further together in community. And if we look a little deeper from a science of mind perspective, we are encouraged to we're encouraged to move from individual to community. We move from being an individual. We don't give up our individuality, but we incorporate that into being in community. And so by doing so, we engage our spiritual practices that help us to evolve and expand in consciousness. As individuals, we focus on our personal development. And yet, when we come together in community, the engagement takes on a broader focus of collaboration and shared goals. The individual brings to the group an openness and compromise to ensure that everyone's voice and interest are included, creating camaraderie, love, shared accountability, and participation. This is how we go farther together in spiritual community. Ernest Holmes shares with this from the Science of Mind textbook. And he writes, one of the first things to do is to love everybody. If you have done this, you have begun to do so. If you have not done this, then begin to do so at once. And we also know that from the teachings of Jesus and from the Bible, the basic foundation of the teachings of Jesus is to love one another. In fact, that is one of the two great commandments, that we love one another. Looking further into science of mind, we also find that this coming together, this we to me, reminds us of the triune nature of God. And so I'm going to offer some new spiritual math for you this morning. 1 plus 1 equals 3. 1 plus 1 equals 3. Now we know that in regular mathematics, 1 plus 1 equals 2. However, in spiritual terms, God in action is the plus. Therefore, 1 plus 1 equals 3, the triune nature of God. We live as human and divine. The divine allows us infinite possibilities beyond what we may think. These demonstrations of answered prayer and our spiritual mind treatments are demonstrations of infinite possibilities. You know, going back to my trip to San Francisco, there's on-site parking at St. Mary's Cathedral where the exhibit was being hosted. And when I pulled in, the parking lot was full. And so I had to go back to my foundations class. You know, what we learned in the foundations class, when we're learning spiritual mind treatment, one of the first things we learn to treat for is a parking spot. So I just said, okay, God, I know there's a divine parking spot waiting for me. And so I circled around and came back and I saw someone pulling out and there wasn't anyone else waiting for that spot. So I was able to pull right in. So that was a demonstration of an answered prayer. It was a reminder that God in me, as me, is symbolic of the whole idea of we, this coming together. And then as a team or as a tribe, we are more than one. As we build on each other's gifts and strengths, we excel. This outpictures as more ideas, more creativity, more diversity, more. And we experience this right here in our own local community. As an idea comes forth, it sparks another idea, and it sparks another idea, and it sparks another idea. And what we create out of those ideas is a place of beauty, a place of love, a place of joy. One of the demonstrations for me and from anyone who enters into our sanctuary is that walking into this space, there is a feeling of love. There is a feeling of welcoming. There's a feeling of being home. And this is what we as community have created. We have tapped into that divine love that is expressing through each and every one of us. And this is what we have created. Imagine, if you will, a jigsaw puzzle requiring multiple pieces to make the whole picture. Each piece serves the whole. And so we are that jigsaw puzzle. Each one of us brings a piece to make the whole a complete puzzle. And that is an example of the infinite possibilities. And so our call to action takes us to the timeless wisdom teaching of our science of mind, which says we believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in all, and that we're all incarnations of the one Spirit. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. I had another revelation during this week, and I invite you, if you have the Science of Mind magazine, to read the daily guide for Thursday, October the 14th. And this is, in fact, the month of October, the daily guides are from the writings of Ernest Holmes that Jesse Jennings has put together, and they're excellent. Each one offers some new insight, and Jesse gathers information and examples from the writings of Holmes from various works. Some are unpublished, some are rarely known. So it's been a learning experience for me to see what other places Ernest has expressed his writings. But what resonated with me was that the phrase, all people are incarnations of the one Spirit. And there's a quote from Holmes, and I'm paraphrasing it. And this is from his little book, What Religious Science Teaches. The universe is God, thought made manifest. The universe is God's thought made manifest. Think of this for a moment. Everything that exists is a manifestation of divine mind. The manifest universe then is the body of God, which takes form. This form itself has a divine pattern. And so my aha out of this was that everything and everyone is of God, the body made manifest. That really hit home and resonated with me that morning. And so embracing this gives me hope and assurance that as we continue to walk hand in hand, we will experience freedom. And that revelation, I placed a stone in my gratitude jar. I've already begun my gratitude practice that I will share with us a little bit later. The stronger in me, the stronger the we. The stronger the me, the stronger the we. And I have another example of that. I'm a fan of Project Runway, and the new season recently opened up. And the contestants were divided into groups, and the group was to come up with a design and with a theme, and they were to present this to the judges and present them what the theme and what the overall intent of the design was. Each designer created their own, the color is bold. That was the theme. So they had to use a bold color in their creation. And so in one of the teams, one of the designers was having some trouble concentrating and really not opening up to what may have been flowing through them. And so one of the other designers took him aside and he said, "Hey, what's up? You gotta get it together. What can I do to support you?" And so he was outside and he was puffing on a cigarette, and the designer took the cigarette and he put it out and he says, "No, you're gonna focus. You're gonna focus. Share with me your idea." And so he shared his idea, and his teammate took the piece of fabric that he had selected for his design, and they were at this critical point where their designs really needed to be finished. And so the model was in hair and makeup, and you see him taking the fabric over and putting it on the model and measuring her, because he really grasped the concept that his other designer had. So he comes back, puts the garment together, and that particular garment turned out to be the winner for the design. And the designer did acknowledge the one who actually helped him put it together. But that for me was a perfect example of we coming together. And as a result of that, their particular team won that challenge. So so the demonstrations are around. I think that's where I'm leading to with this. The demonstrations are around if we look for them. And when we look for them, what we see is, what is my role in this? Where can I offer my individual talents, my individual gifts, and make the whole better? Ernest Holmes says this in Living the Science of Mind: if we do not merge with others in cooperation, in unity, and in happiness, we may be well certain that there is something in us that still feels it has been rebuffed. And this leads us into our reflection or journal questions for this week. And I've asked our Take team to put these in the chat for our virtual community, and also in the comment section on our Facebook Live page. And so our reflections for the week are: what are the benefits of operating from the consciousness of we versus me in our spiritual community? What are the obstacles to realizing a we culture in our spiritual community? What do we overcome, or how do we overcome the obstacles in order to realize the benefits of we in our spiritual community. I'm going to reshape that a little bit, and I'm going to ask us to think about this in terms of our own individual lives. How do I shift the consciousness of me to we in community? Because I think as I read through these questions again, I think that we as a spiritual community here at Monterey have certainly demonstrated this concept of we versus me. This is the glue, if you will, that holds this community together. So in your reflection time, just ask, how may I be a greater contributor to the we? And then our weekly affirmation is, as we go and grow further together, the world brightens. And so I would like for you to repeat this, and I will say it first. As we go and grow further together, the world brightens. Let us pray together. And so it is in this conscious awareness that as we go further together, that the world truly does brighten. And that brightness is the illumination of the Spirit, the one source of all that there is, that is shining its light in and through all of its creation. How good to know that I am one with this creative expression. And this is true for each one that is a part of this community known as the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. And because the spirit of light and brightness and beingness is non-local, this truth expresses and demonstrates itself in and through all people and all places at all times. And so it is in deep gratitude that I give thanks for the awareness that together we go farther. And that being together in community, however it is that we define community, is that place where the Spirit shines its light. The Spirit is continually shining its light. And in those situations, in those experiences where that light becomes dim, I go to that inner source within me. I go to that bright place within my own beingness. And as I allow my light to shine, my light illuminates the path for those who are around me. And so it is with each one of our individual lives. As each one shines their light on the path, the light becomes brilliant, and other lights are invited to join. And we journey together in love, in unity, in cooperation, in oneness, expressing the creative ideas of God that is always there. It is always ready to give to us. All we have to do is ask. Ask and it shall be given. And so in asking, we also express gratitude and thanksgiving for that which has been revealed, knowing that in this moment, in this very moment, I have no unfulfilled needs or expectations because the light is shining and illuminating all that I need to be aware of in this very moment. And so in this very moment, I give thanks for the prayer request that each one may be holding in their heart, may have written out in the form of a prayer request, or may have shared with a spiritual practitioner, with a minister, or with a close confidant who says, yes, I am here to support you. I am here to listen. I'm here to be with you and to be that place where God shows up. Blessing places where people are gathering, recognizing the oneness of spirit, recognizing the oneness of life, all of the traditions that recognize the oneness of life. I bless them. I bless each one on their journey as we recognize that all paths lead back to the source of all that there is. And so for this and so much more, I give thanks. And I release this word into that law, which always says yes. And I just allow it to be. And if any of what I have said and shared resonates with you, please affirm it with me as we say together, and so it is. And this is our time now for our conscious giving, for the sharing of our abundance, our physical abundance that is known as spiritual coins. And we do have an affirmation statement that I would like for us to share together. I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. Gratitude and thanksgiving. I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible substance as an outer symbol of my inner supply into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness, and so it is. And in gratitude for the way that you support our community, we have placed on our screen for our virtual community the opportunity to mail in a check to our center here in Monterey, to donate through our secure website, or to text to give, and those numbers are on the screen. So we thank you for your continual support, for your love, and most of all, we thank you for your presence. And please share this experience with your friends and invite them to watch our live presentation on Facebook. And we invite you to join us next week as we continue our October theme, Going Farther Together. And the message is dig deeper, dig a little deeper. And for those of us who are here in the sanctuary, the offering donation box is on our hospitality table in the center. And so we invite you to take advantage of that. And so we say good morning to our virtual community in Facebook land. And we love you, we appreciate you, and we thank God for you.